Hello, you guys. Welcome back to Freed from Silence in Real Time with yours truly, Chavez. So, this is going to be my first official full episode. I kind of misspoke on my introduction video. That was really just to be an introduction and let you guys know what my podcast was essentially going to be about. But this is going to be the first season, first episode of Freed from Silence in Real Time. And in case someone has not told you, I just want to tell you I love you, I love you, I love you. And more importantly, Jesus loves you. I hope you guys know that, believe that. And I'm just going to dive right in because I don't want to keep you guys long. So, my segment this time, I'm going to do a topic each time. And the first season is just going to be my testimony. And that's going to allow you guys to get to know me on a deeper level and really show you guys in real time what I am healing from. So, I'm going to try to go in chronological order because I just feel like that's easier for me. So, I'm not all over the place. And so, I can really highlight the big moments and the big testimonies in my life that can kind of reflect the areas that God has brought me out of. But also, this is so you guys know what I am healing from in real time currently. These are things that I still have to heal from and that God has kind of brought to my attention that I have not truly healed in every aspect from these events of my life. So, this episode, again, we are going in chronological order. So we are going to start from the beginning, just like any good book. We're going to start from the beginning. Um, so, a little backstory about me. My mom and my dad were high school sweethearts. However, I do not remember a time when they were together. I was never in the same household with them being raised. So she had my older brother in high school around 15 or 16 with my dad, and then I came along 3 years later, and she would have been about 19. So she had us very young. I don't remember living with my mom much. I think I may have lived with her until I was around 3 or 4 years old at most. And then at that point my mom decided that she wanted to leave North Carolina for whatever reason she may have had. Um, and she decided to leave each of her children with different people. So my older brother was left with our paternal grandmother. I was left with our maternal grandmother, and my sister was left with her father's because she has a different father. So she was left with her father's sister, and she was primarily raised by her. So we all were growing up separately. We were not living in the same household. We were seeing each other here and there, but not really consistently as siblings. And honestly, I do not remember my mom being present much, even when she had left the state. So she went to New York. That's where her father is from. So she went there, and we remained here with those family members. And it wasn't like she was calling us and checking in often, or she was coming back to visit us often. I remember going extremely long periods of time without speaking to my mom. Um, Even to the point where I called my grandma mom. I didn't even call her my grandma. I called her my mom. I think because she was kind of all that I really knew because my mom had left at such an early age. I kind of didn't even really have that recollection of living with her prior to. So this is kind of the only mom that I knew, and eventually I will call her like my godmom. Eventually she stepped in and started kind of spending a lot of time with me, and I remember I was calling her mom as well. So here's a kid that is calling her grandmother mom, and then someone who has no blood relation, but because she has kind of stepped into that role, I was also calling her mama at that time. Um, and my grandmother, which my mom had knowledge of this because my grandmother was a full blown addict, crack cocaine, alcohol. And I'm not sure at what age she started using, but I do know, like, in the high school years when my mom became pregnant with her first child, her mom was the addict then. So I'm not sure exactly the thought process of leaving your child with the addict. Um, we have never really communicated that or had a conversation about that. I've heard her kind of say things here and there like, well, she didn't know it was that bad. But at the same time, me as a parent now, you knew your mom was addicted to crack cocaine. In what world does that make a fit person to raise your child? So while the devil was busy enticing my grandmother with drugs, that left me free game. And if you don't know, Children are the easiest target for the enemy. If he can get you while you're young, he doesn't have to fight hard when you get older. When you're just a child and you're innocent, that is when the enemy will try to destroy and kill you. That is why it's important that we pray over our children, that we're vigilant over our children. It is our job. God assigns us to protect our kids, to guide them, to watch over them, because they are innocent. Essentially, they do not have the means to protect themselves. So again, while my grandmother, she was a functioning addict. We generally always had somewhere to stay. Our home was clean, but she would get missing for days at a time. Um, she would bring home men that she was with, and she would be really driven by her addiction. And if you do not know, drugs, alcohol, all those are spirits. So my grandmother could be very mean when she was intoxicated. Um, she was not a very patient. There was no love going on in the home. There was no raising. No one was guiding me. No one was teaching me how to be a young lady. There was none of that going on in the household. But when I tell you I love my grandmother to death at that age, because she was all that I knew. I did not know any better. I did not know any different. I worshiped the ground she walked on. I thought she was the most beautiful woman, and I wish I could add a picture, and somehow I'll see if I can. But when I tell you she was the most beautiful addict you will ever see, you could not tell my grandmother was an addict. She was beautiful. I give her that. So she was not a woman you could look at and tell she was addicted to crack cocaine. She carried herself very well. She was very beautiful in her face. She dressed well. She was clean. All of those good things. However, again, when it came to raising children, it would be my grandmother, me in the home. So my grandmother had me from age 4 to age 10. And this whole period, she was addicted to drugs. Also in the home were my mom's younger brothers. So she had two younger siblings. And while I was in the home, they were underage as well, but they were in their teenage years. So while I was, between this age 4 and 10 period, they would have been going into their teenage years. Well, this is where the enemy comes in for my story and where it begins. And I just want to say this before I tell my testimony, in that a lot of us don't realize that when we experience trauma, whether that be abuse, sexual abuse as a child, physical abuse, any trauma that you experience as a child and even into your adulthood, that fragments your soul. So when your soul is fragmented, that means pieces of your soul are literally pulled from you and stuck in this place of where the trauma happened. So a lot of the times as we're growing up, we don't realize that we need to do a deep soul wound healing and ask God to heal that, to bring back those fragments, to grow us up in those areas, especially if this is something that happened when you're a child. We need to ask God to grow us up, because a lot of us are still stuck. If I was abused at 6, it's a good chance that even though I'm 35, there's still a 6-year old in me that is stuck in that place, that is stuck in trauma. So the enemy, that is where he comes in. Your soul is now fragmented, and this is the areas that are weak that the enemy can now go in and kind of wreak havoc over your life. And that's not something that I learned up until this in my 30s, that this was a thing. So that's why I say this is in real time, because this is something that I'm healing with. Although this is something I already experienced, I'm kind of sharing with you guys how I'm healing from it now as an adult, now that I have the knowledge, the tools, and I'm understanding more how this has affected my life. So here we go. So again, there's my grandmother in the home. She's addicted to drugs. She has two older boys in the home who are in their teenage years. Those are my uncles. And there are a lot of days where she's missing. So I'm not getting a lot of supervision. I'm left alone with them a lot. So what do you know? A lot of girls and boys are sexually abused, especially in the home, and it's usually incest going on. So one of my uncles, I'm going to say my earliest memory is when I'm school age, I would say 5 in kindergarten. So from the ages of 5 to 10, I am left to be sexually abused by my uncle. Um, love my uncle. I say that because a lot of people say, well, why don't you say anything? Why don't children come forward? It's usually people that you love that are doing these things to you. And that is very confusing as a child. This is somebody I wanted to please. This is somebody I looked up to. This is somebody that I genuinely just wanted to make happy. Um, He had a very charming personality. I can remember. He is no longer with us, and I'll get to that. But he had a very charming personality. He was very popular. He literally could have any girl he wanted. So I cannot tell you why a teenage boy would kind of choose to abuse their 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old niece when they have access to girls their age who are willing to do whatever they want. I can't give you the answer for that. I could just tell you my experience. Um, a lot of my abuse, and a lot of people can relate to that because it is so traumatic. My brain has honestly blocked out a good chunk of it. And I think your, excuse me, I think your body does that to try to protect you. When you are a child, that is a lot to process. That's a lot to take in. You don't really understand it. So, in order for you not to lose your mind, your body will begin to kind of block out these things. So, I'm going to talk about a few of the moments that I do remember vividly. But when I tell you there is a large gap of my life during this abuse that I don't remember, um, and my therapist, we talk about this, that I don't remember a lot of my childhood, even outside of the abuse. A lot of people remember who they were friends with in the fourth grade and who their third grade teacher was, who their kindergarten best friend was. I cannot remember majority of any of that. Um, and that is because the abuse was so extreme and lasted so long that my brain has blocked out a good chunk of that kind of to protect me. Um, so I'm going to get into the things that I do remember. Again, like I said, my uncle was very charming. The abuse lasted until I was 10 years old, and he would have been 16 when the abuse ended. And I don't remember the first encounter, I'm going to be honest, but I remember kind of a routine he had if my grandmother was not home. He would often, after school, he would call me into his room. At that point in time, because it had been going on for so long, I already knew what I was expected to do when I was called into the room. So if he was to call me into the room, he would generally close the door. And although I think the door had a lock on it, if you remember, doors were easy to open with like a butter knife. And I think to prevent like his other brother, who was a year younger than him, from coming in, or anyone from coming in, eventually he would move furniture in front of the door, to prevent anyone from being able to open the door. And I remember he would usually just give me a command, and I vividly remember he would usually say, "Get into the position." And again, I'm a little kid, but because I've did this so many times and I've been groomed, I know what this means. I know what I'm supposed to do. So I just do it. I don't ask questions at this point because again, it's been going on for so long. Um, I don't think I'm even thinking in my brain that this is wrong. I don't remember thinking, who can I tell? who who can I get help from? I don't remember having any of those thoughts as a kid. I just remember wanting to make my uncle happy, thinking that maybe we just had some special bond. I really don't know, honestly. But I just remember how much I loved him, how much I looked up to him. So I'm imagining that I just wanted to genuinely please him, and make him happy with me. And so I did whatever he asked me to do. I did not know any better. And it had been going on for so long that that was what I was accustomed to. There was no question. So a lot of times, because I was so young, I want to also point out that there was several attempts of penetration vaginally and anally. However, because I was so young, thankfully he was never able to fully penetrate me, but that did not stop him from trying throughout those years continuously. Um, so he would try, and obviously it would hurt so bad. Imagine, again, I am a little kid. I am a maybe 6, 7. Again, it ended at 10. So my body is not equipped to do these adult things. So of course I would be in immense pain when he attempted these things, and I would say so. And to keep me from making so much noise, he would eventually quit if it did not work out. So a lot of what he would do, and I distinctly remember a certain lotion he would use. And I was just telling my cousin this, to this day, I cannot smell that lotion. It is extremely triggering for me. And thankfully, nobody really uses it anymore. It's like the worst lotion in the world. It was called Queen Helen's, but it wasn't the cocoa butter one. It was the green bottle. And I remember in my adult years, I don't remember who had it, but I smelled it and it made me so sick, like sick to my stomach. I started having so much anxiety, and that just brought back so many memories. This is what was used every time as a lubricant so that he could manipulate and do certain things to me. This is what he would use. So the smell is very distinct. It is extremely triggering to me, even at this age. But thankfully, like I don't run across that lotion much, but I remember that vividly. And it's crazy because it's so much that I don't remember, so much that my brain has blocked out. But that is one thing that I will never forget is the scent of that lotion, the look of the bottle. A lot of times I would just fixate on that bottle and completely disassociate with what was going on, what was happening, and just wait for that moment to be over. And when it was over, when he was satisfied, I don't remember it ever being conversations like, um, don't tell or I'll do this to you, any threats. But I'm sure, obviously, that was going on because I felt that I could not tell. I felt that I would get in trouble. I do remember having that feeling like obviously this is something that I'm not supposed to speak about. Um, I don't honestly don't think that my grandmother ever had any suspicions again because most of the time she wasn't in the house when this happened. I think there were times where she might have been coming home, but you could hear her car and he would just hurry up and put your clothes on and move the furniture back. And I would just go out and act like nothing happened. He would act like nothing happened. Now, another memory later on, and this is towards um, that year 10, which would have been the final year, I do remember it seemed like his brother was catching on. He knew something was going on, but I'm not sure if they ever discussed because there would be times where he would knock on the door. What are y'all doing in there? Why is the door locked? Why is furniture in front of the door? And he would kind of just tell him to go away, to mind his business. And he was the older brother, even though they were only 1 year apart. I also think that he looked up to him. He listened to him. He just had that personality to where everybody looked up to him. They wanted to make him happy. They trusted what he said. He had a very likable personality. He was very handsome, a beautiful smile. So, again, I cannot understand particularly why he chose to do those things with me when he had access to do those things. But again, you will never understand the mind of someone. And I don't know what transpired in his life that would have him doing that at such a young age. But that went on from again from the age of 5 kindergarten because I do remember being school age, getting off the bus and this being a routine, all the way up until the age of 10. And now my other uncle, he never did anything to me, but I think towards the end it got to a point where I feel like in his head he felt like, well, if he is doing these things to her, I can do these things to her because I remember him cornering me into a bathroom and he had turned the lights off. It was completely dark. And I remember the feeling of panic just coming over me. And um, I don't remember what he was trying to do, make me do specifically, but obviously he was trying to make me do a sexual act with him. And I remember saying no and trying to get out of the door. For some reason, I didn't have an issue saying no to this uncle. I did not have an issue fighting this uncle. And I think it was because he had not groomed me, so I did not have this deep connection with him. I did not feel this bond with him as I did my other uncle, where I felt like we just had such a special relationship and that I just loved him so much. It was like I did not have that same with him. We did not spend a lot of time together. And as a child, I did not know what grooming was. So again, I'm thinking of this as a child. I'm thinking that we just have this super close relationship, and my uncle just adores me. And I mean, I would do anything, like not even just those things. If he told me to just like to amuse him, if he told me to go smack his brother, I would do that because my uncle told me to do it and it amused him, it made him happy. I would do things as simple as that. So that's how kind of deep that went. Again, I did not realize I was being groomed at that age. So in that bathroom with the other uncle, I think I do remember him saying that he was going to tell my grandma what we were doing if I did not do that for him. And I said, I don't care. And I remember getting out of the bathroom and he didn't fight me on getting out anymore after that. Did he tell his mom what was going on? Absolutely not. And I don't even know. I think I probably would have been relieved, or maybe a part of me wanted him to tell, or maybe a part of me truly believed and knew that he wasn't going to go against his brother and tell. So I didn't really have any fear that you were really going to tell. I just knew he was manipulating me to get me to do what I was already doing with his brother. But for whatever reason, I had the guts to stand up to him and tell him no. And I'm not sure again what the correlation is or why. I think because his brother started with me so young at the age of 5, that it was totally different than now that I'm 10 and I've been exposed to all of these things with your brother. I'm a little more mature. I think at this age, obviously, I understand what we're doing is wrong because it's hidden, it's secret. And I just was not willing to do that again with you. I didn't want to do it with him. Now you're going to tell me I need to do it to you? No, I was absolutely not. So that created a lot of anxiety. Um, and of course, I still have anxiety now. If things happen to you like that, traumatic as a child, you automatically begin to have anxiety, and that's going to follow you throughout your life. So, of course, I'm riddled with anxiety. I have no one to talk to about this. I cannot tell my grandmother. I don't feel comfortable. She's in and out. I don't want to upset her. I was very much a people pleaser. I did not want to hurt anybody in my family, even though I was the one being hurt. I did not want to upset my grandmother. She loved this specific son. She loved both of them. Those were her baby sons. And she treated them kind of like twins, but she loved them, doted on them. I did not want to ruin that for her. I did not want to break her heart. I knew this at a very young age that it would destroy her. So I wanted to protect her. I still was trying to protect my abuser because I loved him. So I did not want to expose him. No one ever asked. I'm sure there were signs, but again, I'm not in a close knit family. I'm not being monitored. My dad is in and out of my life. Here and there, his mom would get me so I could spend time with my brother, who she was guardian over. And I'm not sure if she ever saw any red flags, but a lot of times when people do see the red flags, they don't know what to do with them. They ignore them, or they don't want to move forward and say anything and be the one to blow the whistle. And I'm not sure why or what builds up in someone that they would choose not to get involved. But I can promise you that they were probably signs there that I was being abused, because now that I'm older and an adult and I have verbally been open that I was abused as a child, it seems that there were people saying that, oh, they suspected that, or they knew that, or they figured something was going on. And the lady that I'm calling my godmother, she was up in age. Um, and eventually at 10, I ended up moving out of the state. And she pleaded with my aunt, who took me in at 10, to not send me back because she did fear that something was going on in the household. And that is why she started trying to get me so much. She was never comfortable with me being home with two teenage boys alone because I was a girl. She made that very clear when I was a kid. I don't know that she ever openly asked me was anything going on. I don't know that if I ever said anything to her, but I spent so much time with her and I was so comfortable and safe with her. I'm willing to bet that there were probably times that I slipped up and said something to her, but I can imagine that she didn't know what to do with it. So her idea was just, I'm going to keep her as much as I can to protect her from that, but she was never happy with me. If I called her and told her my grandmother was not home and I was home with them, within 30 minutes, I would see her car and she would be hunting me down and tell me I was coming to stay with her. That is literally the only person, um, try not to get emotional about that, but that is the only person that I can remember in that time frame that seemed like they were trying to protect me, that they genuinely were trying to keep me safe to the best of their ability. And we maintained such a close knit relationship up until she passed. And she didn't pass until I think she was 90. So she made it all the way to 90. So I got to have a long life with her. Loved her down. The closest relationship. Blood could not have made us any closer. So I'm gonna go back. I got a little sidetracked, but I'm gonna go back to age 10 when the abuse ends. The abuse only ends because my uncle ends up drowning. We lived in a neighborhood that had a man-made pond, and you could swim to a certain point, but you were not supposed to go over the rope. For whatever reason that day, my uncle decided to swim past the rope, and he was there with his brother. They were there with, I think, two other females. I'm not sure who else, and I don't know if he was trying to impress them, but he swam past the rope, and there ended up being a drain that he got caught in that was in that pond or man-made lake. And he also suffered from severe asthma. So the panic of it all made him have an asthma attack. And originally they thought he was joking because, again, he had this fun jokester personality. So they thought he was just trying to scare them until they realized he actually was drowning. No one could swim to go out there and save him. Eventually, he went under the water to the point where he was not resurfacing. So I remember being 10. I remember my grandmother being in the bathroom getting ready, and I was waiting for her. And they came in the house in a panic, saying we needed to go. We needed to go to the lake. Terry was drowning. My grandmother was frantic. So I remember us going to the lake. I don't know at that point how long he had been under, but I can tell you that it took them 4 hours to find his body because it was so dark under there. They had to call in scuba divers. Nobody could go in and get him at that point. Nobody could go in, so they had to wait for scuba divers to get him. And at that time, I was just sitting. Again, I was very observant kid. I was very more, and I'm still that way. I'm very much more concerned about everyone's emotions. I'm an empath. I could feel my grandmother's heart. I could feel my other uncle's heart. Everyone there, I could feel their emotions. So I was very overwhelmed, and I remember just sitting to the side, and I was completely shut down. And it just seemed like it was a dream. At that point, it was police, fire trucks, ambulances, divers, um, certain people from the neighborhood. My grandmother lost her mind, and I do not mean that figuratively. My grandmother lost her mind. She had to leave on an ambulance, she had to be sedated. Several attempts of her trying to jump in herself and could not swim. Eventually, so I think my sister's aunt, who she was living with, came to get me. But at that point, I had already seen everything. The only thing I did not see was them pull his body out. Um, and I remember his brother being devastated. I remember seeing him sitting on a picnic table with his head down. And again, I'm 10, and I'm worried about it. Wow, everyone's so upset. I don't know what to do. I can't comfort them. And I felt helpless. And even with all that he had done, again, this is an uncle that I loved, adored. So not only am I worried about my grandmother and my other uncle's pain, I'm kind of confused with my own, that I'm grieving this person. Um, and of course, there's no one there who is explaining anything to me. I'm lost in the background. There's no one there to comfort me. And even when I get picked up, it was kind of no conversation. It was just, oh, you're gonna come and you're gonna be with your sister, and we're kids, and we don't understand what's going on. So I get there and I just say, oh, he's dead, kind of flatly, no emotion. And my sister wasn't isn't very close to the family because she's being raised by her father's family, so she kind of has no emotion to her. I think she's kind of like, I don't even know why everyone's so upset about it, because she's not understanding truly what's going on, or she's not emotionally connected to this person. So to her, it's not really. It's like, I don't know. She's young, 3 years younger than me. So if I'm 10, I'm telling this to a 7-year old he's dead, and she's just like, well, what do you want to do today? What do you want to do? And of course, I don't think I ever really got. And no one ever came to me and asked, was I okay? How did I feel? I remember staying away for a couple of days. My grandmother was hospitalized, I believe, and then I'm sure she went on a drug binge to try to mask the pain. And I wanted to get back to her. I felt like I was responsible for making sure she was okay. I begged and begged and begged everyone to take me back home. I want to go back home, and I'm sure they were trying to let her grieve. So it was a few days before I came back home. And when I went back home, the house was, it was empty. It was silent. And it was, my grandmother was just not there. I don't remember much being said. I just remember the house was so gloomy. I knew that everyone was extremely devastated. And I was just trying to, a 10-year old, just trying to make them happy. I was trying to do little things here and there, what I could do. I think I had a little cash that my godmother had gave me. And I remember giving it to my uncle in my head that would, at least he could do something that maybe would make him happy. I don't know what the correlation was there, but I was just trying to fix something. I was trying to make it as okay as it could be in that moment. And pretty much after that, like I said, that was a big turning point for my grandmother. When I say it pretty much destroyed her, she struggled quite a bit. I don't even remember how I ended up my fourth grade year. Again, I'm still 10. I ended up starting, I guess, the school year, and I was really friends with someone. I think her name was Nicole, and I feel it bothers me to this day that I can't remember her because I practically lived with her family. My grandmother pretty much started letting me go over there, and eventually my grandmother stopped coming to get me. I was at these people's house for months. My grandmother had dropped off the face of the earth. I did not have contact with any of my family. I'm only 10 years old, so it's not like I have sense enough to call other people and say, "Hey, my grandmother has not came back to get me." Um, and these people, I don't know what they thought. They never said anything to me. They just allowed me to stay there. They allowed me to continue to go to school with their daughter. I remember bringing home my report card to them as if they were my parents. Um, and towards the end, I remember them kind of whispering about moving states. And this is so crazy to say. And I was going to go with them. I did not, I mean, I'm here. It seems okay. It seems like an okay household. Um, I'm not even thinking if anyone knows I'm here. Does my other family know where I am? My dad is not consistent. So has he missed me? Has he asked where I am? I'm staying with um a friend from school. I think her name was Nicole. We were in the fourth grade. I think she had a younger sibling, and it was her mom and dad in the household. And it was a small trailer, and I think it was like a car wash towards the front of it. And I stayed there. Me and her was extremely close, like sisters almost. And I remember one day we were in the bathroom doing our hair. She had very long hair, and we were in there doing our hair. And I remember hearing like, someone had came to the home, and I heard back and forth conversation. And in comes, if you know what a big mama is in the South, that was my great grandmother. She comes in, she looks at me, and she says, "Get your stuff and let's go." And I did what I was told because she did not play. She did not say anything. She did not give an explanation. Later on, I guess I find out that they had eventually tracked me down. I guess they finally got my grandmother to be lucid for enough time and realized that she had abandoned me for months with people, potentially strangers, that people were just not familiar with. So I'm pretty sure people were in a panic that this girl is living with people we don't even know. No one knew where she was. I don't know how they tracked me down, but they did. So she comes, she gets me, and for the remainder of the school year, I moved cities with her, my grandmother, my great grandmother, who we call Big Mama, and she kept me the remainder of my fourth grade year. I'm not sure again what happened behind the scenes because I'm a kid. No one's explaining anything to me. Um, Eventually, one of her daughters, which is my grandmother's sister, they lived in Colorado. Her and her husband, they had two children, and it gets decided that she will take me in, because her mother's a little up in age and she's raised kids and grandkids, and so I end up moving to Colorado at the age of 10. Again, my mom is still nowhere in the mix in this. The only time I seen her Like during the end of this is, of course, when her brother died, she came home. I think at that time she did see how bad the addiction had gotten, and that this time is worse because now my grandmother has lost her child in a traumatic way. So my grandmother was completely out of it. I think my mother was catching on that some new items that were bought for me, my grandmother was storing. They don't know if she was going to sell them or what. So that was kind of alarming. Um, and I do remember there being her asking my grandmother for like my personal things, like where's her insurance card. So I think at that time they were trying to already figure out like she needs to go somewhere else, but it didn't happen like boom, boom, boom. It still was a gap to where I was living with these complete strangers in this time period. So I end up moving to Colorado at the age of 10. That is the most stable I have had, and it was unfamiliar to me. My aunt and uncle were great. My uncle was military. Um, that we stayed in, I would say, middle class at that time. The nicest home I've stayed in. I never lived in a two-story home. I never had my own bedroom. I never had a full queen size bed. Um, I had more clothes than I could count. My aunt kept me extremely well dressed. I remember she let me decorate my room. I chose it to be Winnie the Pooh. She did Winnie the Pooh down. The room was amazing. I don't think they knew that they were getting a child that was abused. I don't think they knew they were getting a child that had a lot of trauma. And had they known that, maybe they would have immediately put me into therapy. So I'm coming to a stable environment. However, I am broken. I am confused. I am completely detached. The fact that I'm even bouncing around and it's not even bothering me. I'm moving to a complete state with strangers, and I don't even remember being scared or having anxiety. I remember just being, okay, this is my new life. This is where I'm going to be, and just rolling with it. So the only thing there is I had a few, I had a few, I wasn't a bad child. I was a very good child, respectful child. Whatever you say do, I was going to do it. But I had a few ways, and I think my aunt originally maybe didn't know what that stemmed from. Like, I lied about stuff that I didn't even have to lie about. Um, I struggled a lot with my feelings. I had a longing with my mom, so I would write and journal a lot about missing my mom, wanting to be with my mom because I felt like I was that was the missing piece, that if I could just be with my mom, that I would feel whole. And I think that bothered her a lot because she was giving me everything that she had. So seeing that, I think it made her feel like no matter what she did, I would never view her as a mom. And she didn't know what to do. A lot of times she would give me Bible quotes to comfort me. Um, my uncle, he was very like easygoing, very adventurous. He made sure I was exposed to a lot of things. I got to do things I never did. I learned to ski. We had a ski pass. We stayed in the mountains. We had a Six Flags Elitch Gardens pass. Anything adventurous you could think of, my uncle made sure we did it. We were never bored. We got to do a lot, and I remained with them for from the age of 10 until I was almost 15. And like I said, that was the only time in my life that I was stable, that I saw what it meant to be loved, cared for. That's the only time that I was raised. And I think that was difficult for them because they're getting a 10-year-old child who's never been raised. I did never had structure. So a lot of it felt kind of, it felt like I was sometimes I felt like it was very strict, but it wasn't that it was so strict. It's just that I was not used to structure. I wasn't used to having to get up and make my bed up. I wasn't used to making someone making sure I bathe, um, help teaching me how to be clean, having a routine to where I am cleaning, doing chores. My clothes are ironed and organized in my closet. I was not used to any of that, so it was a little bit overwhelming to where I felt like this is just strict sometimes. And my aunt is just so anal and she has OCD, and I didn't really understand it. And I can't remember what I got in trouble for, but this is the first time as a kid that I verbalized that I was abused. I remember her probably being at her wits' end with the little things that I was doing, and she was trying her best. And I remember I had got a whooping. I don't know what for. I can't remember, but it was something crazy. And she asked me like, "Do you want to leave? Like, do you not want to be here?" Because at this point, it does not seem like it. And I remember crying and saying, "No, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back." Because bad things happen to me there. And that's the first time someone asked me like, "Okay, what happened? Did someone do something for you to you?" And that's when I told her that my uncle had done something to me. Um, and I guess she handled it at that time the best she could. Um, I'm not sure what conversation was probably had after I blurted that out. Aside from, obviously I wasn't going to have to leave. She was very big on making me read scriptures that would bring me peace, that would kind of help me heal anxiety. Again, therapy is not something that Black people were familiar with, especially in that time frame. So I don't know if it ever crossed her mind like we need to get her in therapy because now she's told us she has been sexually abused. I don't know what conversation her and my uncle had, and honestly, I've never asked. I still am close to this aunt and this uncle, and I don't think I've ever asked her what conversation was had after that came out that night. Um, I'm really not sure, but I think she did the very best she could. My uncle did the very best he could in trying to just give me the life, the childhood that I did not have, to make me feel safe, to teach me the things that I needed to learn. And at that time, I was just not understanding because I had so many things that had happened to me, so much confusion in my head, and only thing I'm thinking about is if I was with my mom, that I would not be having these feelings, that I would feel complete. I feel like something is missing, no matter how good my life is here. This is not enough. This is not what I want. This is not where I'm meant to be. Um, so I feel like maybe that's where the little things that I was doing came into play at, where it seemed like I just did not want to be there. But that is one of my biggest regrets because eventually, and that'll be in the next story, because I will be at age 14 when I do leave Colorado to live with my mom for the first time in my older childhood age. And that'll be on the next episode. But I'll try to, like I said, I'm just going to try to break it up so it's not so much information, it's not so overwhelming. But what I do want to say is what I'm learning now as an adult is the enemy meant for the abuse to steal my destiny. He meant for that to destroy me. The enemy also wants to turn you into the things that are happening to you. So, although if you're sexually abused as a child, you may not turn into a pedophile and abuse other children, but you do have tendencies to do other things. You may be promiscuous. That is why you see hypersexuality in people, in children, or in young girls or teenagers, and even boys. And we like to say they're fast. They don't care about themselves. They're a hoe. No, they're hypersexual because they have been touched, they have been abused, they have been exposed to this, and now their soul is fragmented, and the enemy and a demon has attached themselves to this person, and they're doing all these things to fill voids, or they're doing all this thing to feed the demon. We're not aware of a lot of the things that transpired through trauma. And again, I'm just now learning a lot of these things, just how deep it is, and a lot of people don't want to even open that can and open that book to understand how deep it is, because it really is a lot to take in. Um, I remember just having to sit with myself and really reflect on all the trauma that I have been through. How has that affected me? And I felt like at the beginning of my journey that I was healed, that those things did not break me, they did not make me. If anything, they made me stronger. I survived them. I'm okay. That is something that happened to me, but that didn't make me. Not thinking there's still a little girl in me from the age of 4 to 10 that is still stuck in that house she was getting sexually abused in. That's that shows up in adulthood when I feel abandoned, when I feel the need that I need to be protected. In my spouse, I need a spouse that is going to make me feel protected. That shows up in so many different ways. Why is that? If I'm truly healed, why is that showing up? So a lot of times we say it and it sounds good and it looks good, and because we're in a different place in our life, we say that we're healed and we don't need to talk about those things anymore. But I challenge you to sit with yourself and start to pick apart these little things, and I guarantee you can tie it back to trauma. There is still a little girl in you who is not healed yet. And for me, my prayer with that, again, I this is not a Christian podcast, but I truly believe in God, and He is the healer and restorer of broken hearts. And there's no way that you went through this as a child and your heart is not broken. There's no way. So my prayers to Him now in this season is just to bring back the fragmented parts of my soul, to restore my broken heart, to truly reveal to me the parts of myself that are not healed, so that I can work on healing them and to grow up the little girl in me, the little girl who is still stuck in that home being abused. I just pray that He grows her up so she can be freed from that. And in the result, I too am freed. Now the enemy will no longer have access to torment me in that area, because God will heal that fragmented part of my soul up. That is the whole point of me sharing this, speaking this out loud, and beginning to work on these things. There are so many women and men. We can't count men out. There are boys that get sexually abused as kids. We cannot forget that as well. But I can only speak on my experience. I am a woman. So there are so many young girls who get sexually abused. It gets swept under the rug. Families do not know how to handle it. They do not speak about it. They do not call out abusers. And I also want to add, when you are sexually abused as a child, the likelihood of you being sexually abused again is so high. And in my situation, that absolutely happened. Um, this was a one time encounter, but a great uncle abused me in the same time span. He also was an addict, and I remember him coming home with my grandmother. They were high. She came home with her spouse, and at that time, I did not have my own room. So she told me to sleep on the couch, and she told her brother, which would be my great uncle, that he can sleep on the other couch. And she left me in there with a grown man where you guys are coming back from a cocaine binge. So what happens? I get sexually abused again. And of course, I just lay there and deal with it because this is already happening to me. In my head, is this something that's supposed to happen? I remember just freezing. I remember disassociating from that moment. When he was done, he went back to his couch. It was never spoken about. Um, and again, this another uncle, great personality, a people person, very charismatic. If I see him now, in my adulthood, he would still probably try to, "Hey niece, come here, give me a hug," as if nothing happened. This this trauma definitely affects me in ways of how I parent. I do not allow my children to be alone with family members because it creates a lot of anxiety in me. I know that they are more likely to be abused by a family member than they are to be abused by a stranger. I don't really do for sleepovers. When my children are out of my house, I'm constantly texting them, "Are you okay? What are you doing? Who's there?" I'm asking them when they come home, did everything go well? What happened? If they're acting weird, why are you sad? Why are you upset? Why do you seem like I need to know these things? Because these questions were never asked to me. So now, as a parent, I am hyper vigilant over my children in regards to those things. So, again, although we think that we're healed, these are ways that shows up into your life. These are ways that this is going to follow you if you do not truly sit in the emotion. And again, you have to speak these things, and you do not have to come in front of the world and tell them um, that you were sexually abused as a child, but you need to find at least one person, and you need to verbally share your testimony so you can begin healing, so you can be free from this. This should not be a secret. This should not be hidden in you in a compartment that you have kept a secret and never spoken about. We need to get into the habit of making it okay to call out our abusers. We need to get into the habit of speaking about this and being hyper vigilant over our children, and not in a way that creates anxiety. We just need to be willing to have these conversations and be comfortable with these conversations with our kids, and making sure that we are praying over our children, that we're not putting them in situations that the enemy is accessible to them. In my situation, I was not protected. I was left vulnerable. I was fed to the wolves. I'm surprised that more did not happen to me, if we're being honest. I'm surprised I wasn't trafficked. I'm surprised I wasn't kidnapped. I'm surprised that, again, that this didn't happen with more than just on two different people. And although what I experienced was horrific and it lasted for years, um, I know that it could have always been worse. It could have always been worse. There's someone whose story is 10 times worse than mine. And I just want to say to that person that God can still heal you, God can restore you, as you just have to go to Him. He will literally restore your broken heart. He will literally heal you. And I just encourage you to do your own deep dive and understand that although you think you're healed, you have to look into your soul and realize that the trauma that you endured at no fault of your own has fragmented your soul. That has to be healed. That is a deep wound, and it has to be healed, and it takes a lot of work. And we cannot heal our own souls without God. It cannot be done. There's no way. So if you are not a believer and you have had this experience and you are coming to me telling me that you are healed, I don't believe you. I think that you have may have moved past it. I think that it may not bother you. I think that you may have feel stronger and you may have obtained a lifestyle to where you feel safe now. But are you 100% healed? If you did not take it to God, I don't believe it personally. So I'm just sharing my story. This is part of my testimony. Again, I say that the enemy wanted to steal my destiny at a young age. I'm here before you today to show you that he did not, that God still, even in this ugliness, and a lot of people want to say they want to dictate and go back and forth. If God is so real and he has so much power, then why does he allow children to be abused? That's not God. God gave us free will. And by giving us free will, some people choose to live a certain lifestyle that they are subjected to the devil. And the devil is going to use these people to do these things to children. Why do you think we're seeing so much in the world that all these children are being abused, sacrificed? Because innocent blood is being shed for rituals and things of that nature. People choose not to even look at that or think that it exists because it seems so odd, and everything is just, that's not real. That's not real. It can't be. No. Children are literally being killed, abused, tortured, tormented, sacrificed. They need to be protected. The enemy is after you young. This is not a joke, it's not a game, it is real. Whether you choose to believe it or not, it's happening. It exists. And as you can see, all these things are being exposed in the world. Now, we can't do anything about certain stuff that is out of our reach, but I just encourage you to pay attention to what is in your surroundings. Pay attention to the children that you do come in contact with. Ask God to give you discernment. If you see something, if you even feel something in your gut telling you a child is going through something, make it your business to do something for that child. Get them out of that situation and just be an angel and protect that child. They are defenseless. They cannot protect themselves. So that is my story. This is the first episode. That is part one of my testimony. And although my story definitely starts out a little ugly, a little rocky, I do want to encourage you. My life is beautiful now. God has restored my life, but this is a part of my story. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not scared to speak about it. I think I have not spoken about it in detail because I wanted to protect other people. I realized that who he was to me, my abuser, was not who he is to other people. And while my grandmother was living, I definitely still wanted to protect her feelings. So I never really spoke much about the situation. I just let it be known that I was abused as a child. That is something that I advocate for, but I never was able to speak out loud. Um, Even when it came out, I don't know why. My parents, even, and they may not have the capacity to, but they have never asked. I know it's hard for you to talk about, but what happened? What can you tell me? What was done to you? And I can't imagine as a parent, my child going through these things and not really being able to express that, or me not being able to know for sure like what they went through. So I don't know what's going on. I'm having some technical difficulties. So I did kind of deleted the end of my previous video. So I'm just going to end this episode. Thank you so much for watching season 1, episode 1 of Freed from Silence with yours truly, Chavez. I hope that you guys join me next week. Another episode, another topic. Again, I'm going to be going in chronological order with based on my testimony, my journey. I'm going to highlight the parts that I'm still healing from in real time as an adult, in hopes to helping other people who have the same type of trauma, maybe a similar testimony, and just highlight how you can also be healing, how you can also be freed. And I hope that this gives you the courage to speak your testimony, your truth. Again, we are healing together, growing together. Thank you guys so much for joining. I hope you guys like, share, subscribe, feedback, give me comments, let me know what I can do better. Stick with me. I will get better on editing, on videos, and kind of making it just flow much better. And just stick with me. We can grow together and get better together. No big deal. I will see you guys next week. Thank you so much for watching.